So one of the things that we learned when we examined what students are going through when they're matriculating is that many students are successfully making their way to the electronic application and making it through the electronic application successfully, right? So they're actually successfully submitting applications. But what we learned is that the pre-application and post-application experiences can be somewhat problematic. A statistic that I like to share with folks is that something like 71% of the total volume of electronic applications that make their way into the system are actually not resulting in a student then enrolling in classes. So to be clear, that's not a problem with the application itself, or rather that stat doesn't represent a problem with the application itself. But it does mean that there is a large hole in the funnel where we're getting students to sit through this large web form. They tell us in the terms that are the strongest ones available to them that they're interested in attending a given institution, but we're losing them after that. And so in examining the workflows, we did find that there are two areas that we think we can make a lot of improvement in, and MyPath is designed to help both of those. And of course, it can be configured by your college, which we can talk about later. But we know that we'll start with the post-application experience. So student goes all the way through the application, they sit through that web form, push submit. And currently, for a college that is not using MyPath, all we give them at the end of the application is a thank you page. So we say, thank you for sitting through this form. Thank you for filling all of this out and giving us your info. We'll get back to you soon. And for some colleges, soon really does mean soon, right? It might mean a couple of hours, and they'll send an email to that student with a set of next steps, instructions, things like that. But for a lot of colleges, it can be days before that set of next steps is distributed to the student. And so it's no wonder that so many students are submitting applications and not enrolling because we're not doing a good job of staying in contact with them, right? No outreach is really occurring until, the college downloads the application information from CCCApply, processes it, sends the email, all those kinds of things. So MyPath can certainly help with that. So this is what I'm displaying on my screen here is just a sample college, right? This is all just purely demonstration content designed to kind of show what the UI and experience looks like from a high level. So you can imagine if you use MyPath, what you can actually do is when that student pushes submit on the application, you can then seamlessly and immediately segue that student into an onboarding experience, right? So this experience is intended to help bridge the gap between the application and the enrollment, right? So you can get that student to immediately begin whatever sets of next steps you have in mind for them. So this is all totally configurable, right? You can brand MyPath here, your logo, your name, whatever font you like, the colors. This rotating image that you see here can be completely customized with pictures of your students, your campus, whatever else. But really the meat and the potatoes here is in this prescriptive experience here, where you set forth the tasks you would like your students to be completing. We, in the course of developing, this, which is our initial sort of user experience and user interface, we sat down with a lot of California community college students from across the state of varying backgrounds, right? So folks who are young, folks who are old, folks who are comfortable with technology, folks who are not. And one of the things that was a really common thread of feedback amongst all of those people that we interviewed was that they dislike being dropped into a new web experience where they are expected to sort of suss out on their own what is expected of them, what order they should be doing things in, where they need to go to finish certain things. And so the idea was that we wanted to make the experience, like I said earlier, as prescriptive as possible, lay it all out for them in as clear terms as possible. So these task cards are really intended to do that. You can obviously set a number of things you'd like for them to do, watch this orientation video, read about this financial aid information, do this career exploration. All of these things are totally possible for you to set here. And this is all completely configurable by you, the name of the card, what each task actually is, what order the tasks occur in. And then, we'll fill up progress bars and check off tasks as students are completing them. The individual tasks themselves can mean different things, right? You can send them to informational pages within MyPath if you'd like them to consume some information. You can send them off to tools that are outside of MyPath if you'd like them to go do things there. And then we'll track where they are. And I want to also call very specifically some attention to a couple of features that are embedded in MyPath. So one is a communications engine, right? So you can see here that we've got an inbox in MyPath. MyPath is actually able to communicate with your students across email, in the MyPath inbox here in the MyPath UI, and also to send text messages to students as well. And you can set them up to automatically remind students of certain things. We talked earlier about that problem where we know that students are submitting applications and then not enrolling in college, or enrolling in classes rather. In order to help sort of make sure that we're moving them from application submitted status all the way through to successfully attending classes, we want to make sure that we're as sticky with them sort of in that kind of in-between period as possible. So you can reach out to them automatically via text message, reach out to them automatically via email saying, hey, student, we know that you finished this task, but you have another one that's remaining here that you haven't done yet. Why don't you come back to our system and re-engage with us and stay, keep moving forward toward that eventual goal of enrolling. And the other thing, and this is maybe the coolest thing about MyPath that I wanted to mention too, is that we know that an onboarding process or an ideal onboarding process is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Right, so you might say that the vast majority of my students should go through an orientation step, and then they should do some career exploration, and they should read about financial aid, and that will be applicable to many of your students, but there are so many other students that you get that need more individualized attention than that. And MyPath is actually able to provide that for you. So we are directly integrated with CCCApply. We actually get that CCCApply information even sooner than the college does. And you can actually turn on rules in MyPath that will cause the orientation experience to dynamically respond to facts about the student. So let's say during the application process, the student has said that they're a veteran and that maybe that they need childcare services as well. So you can actually say, for students that are veterans, I don't want the first step to be orientation. I want the first step to be read about veteran services in my campus. For students that need childcare services, I actually want the fourth thing they do is to read about childcare services and maybe send a text message to them about an upcoming childcare seminar that we're hosting. The opportunities and possibilities really are endless in terms of the number of different customizations that you make like that. But we want to make sure that you have the tools to create this onboarding pathway that is customized to each individual student's needs, rather than just one generic onboarding pathway that all of your students go through. And the last point I want to mention too is that this is all very, very easy to set up. It was intended to be administered by non-IT staff. We know that IT teams across the state at all the community colleges are usually slammed with work. We don't want to put another thing on their plate. We have various personnel, counselors, admissions and records individuals that handle setting up MyPath for their college. And it's really pretty easy to do so. And our team is, of course, always available to help you make those customizations. Now, lastly, before I hand the reins over to Sandra to talk about Career Coach, I want to mention as well something that I talked about earlier, which is if you decide that you want to use MyPath before the application, you can do that as well. So one thing that I've heard from a lot of college administrators is that they're afraid that some of the responses that students are giving in the application are not informed by enough things, right? They're not necessarily based on research or real decisions the student has made. They are just selecting things out of a dropdown in an effort to try to get through the application faster. And so you can actually use MyPath ahead of the application to give the student a number of steps to go through before jumping into the app, so that you are getting real and true responses. A really good example of that, which is a good segue over into Sandra actually, is the idea of career exploration. So a student can actually take an assessment, decide what kinds of careers that they might be interested in pursuing before going through the application. And then you can set up a step immediately following that will actually have them start the application so that they can take the information that they just learned about what type of career they're interested in, what program of study will get them to that career, and then input that info into the application so that they're getting the best service possible, right? They're giving you the most accurate information, and then you are therefore able to help them in the way that is most beneficial to them because their responses on the application were true and real. So I realized that that really was a 10,000 foot overview. But MyPath is solving a very real problem that exists. We know there are a lot of students who are applying. We know there are a lot of students who are giving information that is not necessarily super well researched. We know that there are a lot of students who are applying and then not enrolling. But MyPath is very easy to be set up in such a way as to help either or both of those types of students at your college. And we can actually set up with you an opportunity for a demonstration with your own local teams to give you a much more sort of detailed and college-specific demonstration in the future as well. So with that being said, I will hand it back over to Q to move us along to the next topic.
Thank you, Mike. Sandra from MZ, are you ready to go?
Yes, give me just 1 second to pull up the right screen here.
Perfect. And while she's doing that, I want to let you everyone know, just as a reminder, that if you have a question at any point during the presentation, you can use our chat box function to go ahead and ask your question. And then once we get to Q&A, we will be happy to answer that question for you. It's all yours, Sandra.
Thank you. Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. So my name is Sandra Poisson, and I've been here at MZ for over 2 years. What I've been doing most recently is helping implement our software products. In case you haven't heard of MZ before, I have our homepage up. We are a local labor market information company who has been helping higher ed institutions for the last 15 years, helping them, providing them the data to help them make the right decisions to help their students. If you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to visit the website I have displayed. Like Mike mentioned, we're really excited to help with this career exploration portion of the MyPath, helping them give an endpoint in their education, helping them complete, and not even just complete, but come to your school after applying. See here nicely that these are linking right to our the Career Coach homepage. So here you have the Career Coach homepage that you'll see upon visiting. Just to give you a quick orientation, there's a search bar up here. You have our 3 main steps, or 3 main areas. You can take a career assessment if you're trying to figure out where to even start. If somebody has a career in mind already, or a career area, or if they are already enrolled in a program and they're just looking to see what their career options are. Most people tend to start with the career assessment, and most of the users, it sounds like, would be coming in at this point as well. So when you come to the assessment, there are 2 options. There's the quick start 6 question and the detailed 60. For reference, the 6 question takes maybe 20 seconds. The detailed is probably like 2 minutes. I'll take the 6 question because nobody really wants to see me answer 2 minutes worth of questions. We prompt them along to make them think of, okay, well, it's not so much of, this is an interest profile, right? So we're not having them think about, do you have the training or how much money at the front end? We're just looking for their interest. And then it asks you certain things, like, do you like to play outside? Do you like to work with your hands? And you just kind of go through and you rate, or the user would rate. Then this last question is just to kind of get them to think about, well, how much schooling do I really want to consider doing? Then it brings you to, here's your top 3 RACEX scores, realistic, conventional, and social. And it gives you a short description of what those 3 are. Then what the best part about this is it tells you which career cluster you're best matched to. No matter what I pick, I always come health science majored. And then what it does is those are further broken down into subclusters to help just guide them as they're trying to make the right decisions. So I'm going to go into diagnosis and treatment. And then the next page that pops up is these are all of the careers that fit underneath this diagnosis and treatment subcluster. You get a short description up at the top about what this type of grouping does. And then it goes ahead and ranks again what your best matches are. And they have a chance to look at a glance, a quick description, the annual wage, the levels of education most commonly obtained for having this career. And they can just kind of scroll through, see what might be of interest to them. They can sort. So by default, it's sorted by the match percent because you've taken the assessment. But you can change it to salary or alphabetical if that is of preference. And just click in Register Nurses. And this first page of the career section gives you the median salary and tells you where the new workers could expect to start, so about 66 as opposed to 100. And then it also gives you an idea of how many annual openings this career experiences, so due to growth and turnover. A key point to point out is that this data here, as well as the programs below here that are offered to fill this career, are based on the region that you've selected. So if you pull down this drop-down, it'll see there are different regions available, and it would change the values. But I'm going to stick with California.
Hey, Sandy, just really quick, I want to mention to that point specifically, we actually have the ability to automatically sort the region to your college as well. So if a student is logged into your MyPath account and they come to Career Coach, we will know what region your college is in, and we will pre-select that region for the student. They can always select a different region if they're interested in researching other places, but we will automatically handle that step for you.
Right, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that point. I primarily deal with implementing individual institutions, so I apologize. So the region would be pre-selected, and the programs offered would be for the region coming in. You can also learn about what a student could also learn about what daily tasks would I be expected to perform? Do I like to do those types of things? Let me take a glance at the different ed levels across the country, what's typical for this career, as well as what skills are employers asking for. So this is coming from MZ's job posting data. So it helps kind of give some context to what skills are needed in the workforce. Again, we have the wage information, but displayed as a table to help kind of give a visual picture, as well as displaying the monthly job postings over time, giving some idea of the trend and the perceived health of a career. You can also look to see what companies in the region are hiring, and what is the employment projection looking like? Is this something that's going to do well for a while, or is this something that is maybe not looking too likely? So with all of that information, we're hoping to give the students a picture about, do I really want to do this career? Should I really pursue education in this field? And to that end, if we were to jump to one of these program pages, so we've selected a career, we're really interested, we want to go to this college. We will then be able to jump over to the program information page, and then we can take it from there and really learn and apply, if necessary, get some more information, maybe some more contact for that program. So that was coming from the viewpoint of not really sure where I want to go, what I want to do. You can take the assessment, walk through the careers, and then from there, pick the program of interest. You can also start with the career section. If you didn't take the assessment, this would show it alphabetically, the clustering, but since I did, it's going to be based off of the ranking. And the programs are organized in categories. So if there's a specific program area that they want to cover, they can click in here and see for the region that they're in, what in the architecture and related technology field, program field, is available. There's also a military search, which we find a lot of our clients are excited about. Come in here, and you can put in your military code. And you can see, based off of the skills associated with the military occupation and the skills associated with the civilian career, you can kind of see where a student with military experience would line up with maybe just a little bit more training. And that is a really quick overview, but we find that keeping the end in mind, keeping that career goal really helps facilitate entry as well as completion. And with that, I will pass it along to David.
Thank you, Sandra. Next, we'd like to welcome Robin from Golden West College to speak a little bit about their college's experience with MyPath. Robin, the floor is yours at this point.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about MyPath. I'm glad that we were able to get involved. I wish I could say that we didn't have any bumps in our road for getting started, but that's not how technology works. But this is the Golden West MyPath page. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And so we started off really, one of the things I really like about being able to use MyPath is that it's very simple to adjust as we need to. So this is our third or fourth incarnation of our program, and it always changes based on what we need to push first. So we have our priority registration components done at the beginning. What we used to have for our assessment placement is now just making sure that we have their transcripts set in, so it will send us to a multiple measures page. We can start with our orientation through Canvas, and since this is behind our single sign-on, it would take me, if I click on that, it would open up a new page and take me directly into my Canvas page. And I don't have to log in again because I'm already there. And then the same thing's true for other levels when I want to tie into my FAFSA or check my status. It will tie into behind our portal, and I don't have to sign in again, and it can take me to that section of my financial aid data so that I can see what I need to do. And same with registration. We've always been having issues with just getting people down to that page, so we've talked about adding other elements in here, so it might take me to my open schedule planner. That's our Civitas tool, so that students can register directly there, but we're trying to leave it more open so that other people could use the tool that they found was most useful for them. So the overall, and then even with these movable banners, that they'll all click to take somebody to something that might be useful to them. And one of the things that's been the most intriguing for us is the idea of being able to text students who are missing out on details as we go. So if, in this case, somebody has done these first two elements, but they haven't met with the counselor, the student would get a text after, in this case, we set it for 48 hours to say, I should have brought that text, but there's still things that you can do to get priority registration because that's the name of the card. Click on MyPath to complete the task, and then once they've done that, it'll take them to the next one and make sure that they have time to follow up with each one of those. And when they're done, we make sure that we want to have them go back to our portal, because while this is a great tool for us to help students get onboarded and make sure that they understand that the primary elements of where we're going, all the way through, we've wanted them to get used to using our primary portal and figure out how to navigate around that more accurately. So the nudges that we can give them along the way are ones that we are hoping will help them go back into our portal so that we can reorient that as we develop that process. We're just at the beginning phases of being able to tie in some of the data that we get from CCCApply so that we can have an additional card set up for international students or for students that want to learn about Puente or other things that we have deemed useful for that particular student or cohort. And then once we start our FYE experience next year, we're really trying to to make sure that that gets in the first card, and we change that whole process up again. So it's nice to have it be something that can be very dynamic, that can be changed in moments, and that the new student always gets that new, fresh experience whenever they come in. And once somebody's completed a card, so once I've clicked on all these elements, what used to happen, I hope it still happens again, if I logged out of the system and then logged back in. I haven't tested this for a while, but that card should now be at the end.
It's not a real live demonstration unless we break something.
Oh, it didn't work. Does that change? That used to be the fact that this one would have moved to the end, and since I have more cards here.
There's just there's a box you have to check on the admin side that'll turn that on.
Ah, shoot.
Yeah, you can do that.
Maybe I should do that now too. Where's my box? Oh, that's the wrong box. You want to walk me through it? They can see how to do it. Then we can
scroll down a little bit further. So let's see here. Oh, actually, go back up at the top to where it says preferences there. See right under advisor card administration where it says preferences.
Advisor card. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, quick preferences. There you go. So now when cards get finished, they move to the end of the list.
Okay. I don't have to send anything. That's it.
Should be ready to go, yeah.
Okay. Let's try again. Let's see what happens. Do I have to log out again? Probably should. Okay, and now the exciting retest. Because that is nice. Yeah. The other problem is if we have too many, it worked, yay.
Hey, look at that.
So now they've moved on to the next card. So that primary card is right there at the beginning. And now this last card where they've mastered and they're done would be the final thing. And every time they finish, they'll be able to get to that new card and move forward. Well, I'm glad we tested that, because that would have been disappointing for the students to, I didn't want any students to come in and feel like that's all they had to do is what they see at the beginning. So I think moving it over like that will be helpful.
Yep, and it's totally configurable. So colleges who want it the other way can have it that way, and everybody's happy.
So that's what I got. I had a question saying, "Are we live now?" We were live yesterday, and then we had some issues with Internet Explorer on one computer, and we just wanted to make sure that since this is the first time a student logs in is through this system, and one of the difficulties we've had is that the way that our single sign-on works had some peculiarities that were different than what the CCCApply people wanted, and we had to go back and forth with that for a while. And even now, I don't know if you noticed, I noticed, but when I clicked on check my status, it didn't take me directly to this financial aid page. It took me to my main home page. But when I go in a second time, it takes me to my financial aid page. I'm okay with that bit of quirkiness. But we did find that with Internet Explorer, we're running into some more issues that we only had on one computer. And I've since replicated on like 5 more computers, and everything seems to be fine. So I think it might just be that one computer. And so we'll go back and turn it on again tomorrow. So we were live, and we're not live today, and we'll be live again on Thursday because that person's gone. But we're excited about the messages are all working. Everything in our system seems to be working the way it had been anticipated. So we should be good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robin. And that's a really good point to bring up too, which is that we do have a team that's dedicated to helping with configuring the couple of technical aspects specifically related to SSO. So if there are experiences like Dr. Brammer demonstrated, where you want to send students into portions of your local systems, and single sign on those students into those systems, we can help you with that as well. All right, Q.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Robin. We appreciate you sharing and giving us a live demonstration of your MyPath instance. So let's go ahead and go through into the question portion of the presentation. We have several questions that are in the chat box, and I see, Mike, you've been very diligent about making sure to answer them as they come up. But just so that way, for those who aren't able to have any access to the chat box, let me go ahead and just read them out. And Mike, if you wouldn't mind just really quickly restating the answers that you gave to the individuals. The first one we have is, do we get to personalize the application view and the thank you notice?
Take myself off of mute here. So yes is the answer to that question. Basically, the application experience changes a little bit once you adopt MyPath, and we give them a different confirmation page that indicates that your college, and we give your college's name and logo and all that kind of stuff, has an onboarding experience that they're asking their students to go through, and then we launch them into MyPath from that page. As well, once you turn on MyPath, you actually have the ability, once the application is submitted, to trigger messaging kind of however and whenever you want with whatever content you want. And so we can, when we start setting up your account, we can talk to you about what sort of notifications and reminders you want to be sending, and then we'll help you with that.
Awesome. Our next question was, if a student completes a task, is that information available to the college?
Yes. So in answer to your question, and there were some, I think, some sort of finer details in that question. So we do track all of the things that a student is doing to their CCC ID. Right, so we do know the unique aspects of that student. If the student does log out and then comes back, we remember their progress. We know what tasks they've already completed, all of those things. And then we are currently in progress working with the MDM and Superglue teams to be able to stream that status data to your local systems so that you can sync each individual student's progress in MyPath to your local systems if that is a level of control that you are looking for. I know it can help with outreach, tools and things like that you might have locally, but that is an option for you. Worth mentioning as a related note to that is that we do also have a reporting suite so that you can see what's happening in your MyPath account.
Perfect. This next question is regarding career coach, Sandra, so just to give you a heads up on that. Can we tailor the results of the career assessment to our colleges, specifically if we don't have such programs, or as we move into meta majors via guided pathways?
Yes. Mike was on the ball and responded to that one. So within the single sign-on, not only does it set the region for the career data, but it also will move your programs to the top of those options. You'll get top billing, if you will.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandra. Our next question is, so each time a student completes a section, does the highlighted section automatically move over to the next section on the home page as a visual for the student to indicate there's more steps?
So,
go ahead, Mike.
Sure, yeah. So basically, that's actually what you saw us working with Dr. Brammer to configure kind of on the fly there. We actually changed that logic immediately, so hopefully that shows you how easy it is to set the product up. But you can choose to either have your task cards remain static, so even as they're completed, they remain in their position, or there is an option that you can select to have completed task lists move to the end of the queue, so that the first position is occupied by whatever in progress steps the student has, or whatever the next unfinished thing is that they have.
Great. And then is there fees to the college for using the tools?
That is actually my favorite question because I love telling people that it's free. So MyPath is free. The services to help you implement it, which is pretty easy, are also subsidized and free. And we are able to provide you Career Coach for free as well. So hopefully that's the answer you wanted to hear.
Great. And then the next question is, has MyPath and Career Coach been tested in mobile? Does it work for iPhone, i.e. Safari, and the Chrome Android browser?
I can answer from the Career Coach perspective, in which case it is mobile responsive, and I've tested it on both iPhones and Androids, and it seems to work great.
Yeah, and to echo that, MyPath is similar. So not only is MyPath fully accessible, so it works with screen reader technologies, and in fact, we're not actually able to release any new software or code updates without also completely rechecking the accessibility. But it is responsive in nature, which means it does work on devices of various sizes and using various operating systems.
Okay. Next question is there a way to mark the home page for the student on where they left off last, like a welcome note, i.e. welcome back, during your last visit you completed the application, and when you're on your way to completing your FAFSA, and here's the hyperlink, please click the link to continue.
So, okay, so that's an interesting question, multi-layered. We are able to trigger two different types of communications that go to the student. So we have automated reminder nudges that you can set so that when there are unfinished tasks, MyPath can reach out after 24, after 48, after 72 hours, et cetera, to remind the student, hey, you got an unfinished task. That message will actually include whatever the next task is. So, hey, the next thing is to read about financial aid, or hey, the next thing is to read about this, childcare seminar we're hosting, or whatever it is, basically. That's included in the actual body of the message itself. And then we provide them a link that opens up that task specifically. One of the things we also didn't show you is there is actually a drilled down view of each of those sort of task cards, where you can actually give a lot more contextual information to the student if you would like to. It's totally optional. You can have the cards just launch tasks by clicking on them, or you can set it so that when a student clicks on one of those cards, it brings up a different interface that tells them what they're going to be doing, why they're going to be doing it, how much time each of those tasks is expected to take, so on and so forth. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, and then let's see.
I see this last question here. This can we adopt in stages career tool first, for example? So you can adopt in stages, but the stages are somewhat scripted, right? So you can adopt MyPath first without adopting the career portion, and then adopt that later if you would like. Unfortunately, you cannot take the career tool prior to MyPath. So you can have MyPath without the career tool. You can have them both together, but you cannot have career coach without MyPath at this point. That may change in the future, but that's not the case now. I see another one. How much time does it take to set up? So that honestly completely depends on how complex you want to make your experience for your incoming students. I've seen accounts completely configured inside of a few hours if you want to start with something relatively streamlined and simple for your students. Keeping in mind, of course, that that you don't currently have anything that bridges the gap between the application and the enrollment, right? Until you process those records coming from Apply, there's nothing going after the student. There's no messaging. There's no onboarding experience. None of those things are happening until you process that record, reach out to the student, and they follow whatever instructions you give them. So even putting a simple and streamlined MyPath experience in place for your students is vastly superior to what they get now, which is just a waiting game until an email shows up, right? So I guess to circle back to the question, you can set up a MyPath account, assuming you get agreement on what goes in there, inside of your own institution in just a few hours if you want to. You can also spend weeks or months, figuring it out and getting it set up exactly to your liking. We generally recommend that you start with something simple, something streamlined, something will help your students by giving them just a few simple steps, and that will keep them engaged with automated reminders. And then over time, you can layer in additional content, steps, those kinds of things on the fly, as you decide that you want to introduce them to your onboarding experience.
Okay, great. Another question that came in is Rob stating, I noticed that tasks are checked off after they're clicked. If the student doesn't actually perform that task, that item remains clicked. Is there an API to pass data back to the advisory cards to uncheck items that were not actually completed?
So that is an excellent question, and we would love to enable that kind of functionality. And in terms of our code and infrastructure, we're set up to do that. We simply need to ensure that we're working with your team and with Glue to be able to transmit that back and forth. So if we do work with your institution, please bring that up during the demonstration because we'd love to get that working for you.
A question was sent in from Janice stating, is there an overlap of information between californiacolleges.edu site versus CCC MyPath?
Let's see here. Can you repeat that one for me, Q? I don't see that one.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was sent in privately here. Let me post it in the public chat real quick so you can see. There we go.
Between californiacolleges.edu site versus CCC MyPath. That is an interesting question. And so I would say that no, because the content that is in MyPath is entirely controlled by whatever you guys, your institution, put into your MyPath account. There is a statewide MyPath account as well that is controlled by the Chancellor's Office, but that's not really part of the onboarding experience we're talking about here. And because the Chancellor's Office is involved in both those projects, they may have some content in both places. But when we're talking purely about the onboarding experience you're enabling for your students, whether that be prior to the application or afterwards, there shouldn't really be any overlap if you don't set it up that way.
There's a follow-up question on the earlier about how much time it takes to set up. If the colleges is part of a multi-campus district, would all colleges have to use the tool?
So no is the answer to that. You can turn on MyPath per college as they are ready. It's actually tied to each college's MIS code and the way that it's set up in CCCApply. So each individual campus gets their own MyPath account if you choose.
And it looks like Robin actually had a question that I missed. I'd like to follow up on this regarding Career Coach. They have our programs at the top of what they offer, but our programs are not listed at the top. So there might be 4 programs that we do not offer at the top of the page before a student can see anything that we offer. Can we change this so that only our program appears at the top?
Okay, so the way that logic works today is that for a given program of study, as it appears in the Chancellor's Office curriculum inventory, your program will always be at the top for that specific program. Now, the way Career Coach displays program results right now displays all of the curriculum inventory for a given career. So unfortunately, if there is another college that offers a different program, or rather a different program of study that alphabetically would appear before that in the Chancellor's Office curriculum inventory, that one will appear higher on the list. We can look at possibly altering that with the Career Coach team so that maybe we sort not only your program to the top of the list for a given, or your college to the top of the list for a given program, but that we also select that program to be at the top of the list and kind of ignore the alphabetical display. The sorting is currently working. The issue is that there's a lot in the Chancellor's Office curriculum inventory and we display alphabetically. So, we'll have to examine whether we can put that enhancement in place, and I'll follow up with the Career Coach team afterwards.
Dan states, Bakersfield College has a nice demo tool that helps students see programs, classes, and helps with choosing classes. What level of integration would or could MyPath have with a tool similar to the Bakersfield College demo tool? Would it be a separate link or more integrated than that, like a tab or question mark?
So an excellent question, and we are definitely working with Bakersfield, and their development team is Concentric Sky, so we have a good relationship with them, and we think that tool is going exciting places. Certainly, it would be possible to have some of your tasks set up to point into that program mapper tool once it is live or once your college has adopted it. It is also entirely possible and probably probable that the things a student is doing in that program mapper tool could actually be taken back and utilized by MyPath for the purpose of arranging the onboarding experience to work in a specific way, like potentially reordering cards, showing different cards with different tasks based on what has happened in the program mapper tool. So we are certainly in conversation with them right now about how we could make that be the case. But at a minimum, you could certainly have students not only be able to access that, but also be able to SSO into that tool from MyPath if you chose to.
Excellent. So it looks like that was all of the questions so far in the queue. Let me go ahead and do a couple of upcoming announcements while we wait to see if anyone else has any additional questions. I just want to let everyone know that our next webinar will be Wednesday, October 17th at 2 p.m. Mike and someone from MZ will be on board to answer any new questions that may have occurred, provide you with any updates about MyPath at that time, and we'll also be having a different representative from a college currently implementing MyPath on board to speak and share their experiences. Also want to let you know that the recording for this website or for this webinar will be posted on the EPI website. And those of you by registering will be receiving notification once that is available on Friday. If you're ready to sign up for MyPath, please contact Keith Franco at the email below. There's also a robust user community located at the website down here at www.ccctechnology.info/ccctc. And it looks like that gave us time for one more question to come in. So the question is, what is MDM? Mike, would you mind?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Okay, so MDM is a system that is being put in place that is called Master Data Management is what that stands for. And you know what, rather than attempt to explain that particular project, if you would not mind, if you could put your email address either in the chat here or just send it to me privately, I would be happy to send you some great materials that will explain why that is or what it is. And it will include how that will help MyPath sync the statuses that we have about the student to your local systems as well. Okay, so looks like I've got an email address there. Let me copy that. All right, I will check your inbox here as soon as we're done, and I will send you some information.
Okay. And then also, Mike, can you clarify the difference between this MyPath and the Chancellor's Office MyPath?
Oh, hang on one second. Another email address I got to copy. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Q, would you mind grabbing this for me just so that I can?
Yes, I will do that. I got the chat saved, so those all will be ready for you.
All right. So think about them as different entities. So the Chancellor's Office has a MyPath account that can be accessed by sort of organic web traffic that makes its way there. And so a lot of it is centered around value proposition for the system as a whole. So why are you interested in the California Community, or why you should be interested in the California Community College system, you know, where you can go to apply, information about financial aid and the California College Promise Grant, all those kinds of things. Your individualized accounts are exposed to your specific incoming students as a part of the application. So like we talked about earlier, you can have students go through your MyPath account that's set up with your specific onboarding steps leading up to the application, if you wish. You can have it be following the application, again, if you wish. So when the student pushes submit on the application, they get your MyPath onboarding experience. Or you can kind of bookend the application, having them go through this onboarding experience before and afterwards. They're separate entities, and you don't have to worry about overlap between the Chancellor's Office account and your local account. They're separate.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And so with that, unless there's any additional questions coming in, I just let everyone know, for those of you who posted your emails in the chat box, I've saved all those, and we'll be forwarding them over to Mike as soon as the webinar is completed. Once again, we will be posting the recording of this session on Friday at the website listed here, ccceddplan.org. You can go on there, and in addition to viewing this presentation, you can go through and also view past webinars where different examples. We also have a series of professional development modules available on there that take the user guide and break it down into 4 individual short videos between approximately 5-6 minutes in length. And then you can use to kind of help you, assist you with setting up your instance of MyPath, or if you're just kind of curious to see it in action. Just want to once again thank you for joining us here today. We appreciate your participation, and I'll be sending all these emails over to Mike. Thank you, everyone.